Imagine a world where elegance meets betrayal, where art intertwines with dark secrets, and where the pursuit of truth could unravel a life once thought perfect. This is the story of Amanda Everwood, a gifted artist whose world shatters when the love of her life turns out to be living a double life. As passion spirals into a web of deceit, murder, and hidden identities, one young man's quest for answers will uncover the haunting truth behind his family's tragic fall from grace. Join me as we delve into a tale of love, loss, and redemption that will keep you on the edge of your seat. With her striking blue eyes and chestnut hair, Amanda Everwood embodied style and originality. Her early home was surrounded with the aroma of oil paints and the sight of canvases in varying states of completion because she was born into a family of painters. Amanda swiftly established herself as a superb landscape artist, displaying both her mother's skill and her father's tenacity. Her paintings were renowned for their vivid hues and ability to convey the essence of the natural world. Conversely, Richard Everwood descended from a family of attorneys. Many generations of the Everwood family served as judges, lawyers, and legal academics, and the family was well known for its legal prowess. After graduating from law school at the top of his class, Richard went on to become a partner in one of Belleville's most prominent legal businesses. He was an attractive husband and a formidable lawyer due to his charm, excellent looks, and smart mind. Richard and Amanda got to know one another in their second year of college. It was a quintessential example of opposites appealing. Amanda's carefree attitude blended well with Richard's organized and methodical way of living. Their romance blossomed among late-night study sessions, gallery openings, and summer road trips, and they fell in love rapidly. Following graduation, they tied the knot in an opulent ceremony that made headlines in Belleville. Amanda loved the stunning Victorian house they moved into. She turned it into a loving, creative, and musical sanctuary. Amanda frequently painted in the house's expansive garden, taking cues from the vivid flowers and shifting foliage. Richard, however, put a lot of effort into his profession and frequently worked long hours at the office. Ethan, their son, grew up to be Amanda's everything. At first glance, their lives appeared to be ideal. Painting, taking care of Ethan, and helping at the local art center occupied Amanda's days. Richard's career kept going strong, and his firm quickly promoted him to partner. They frequently became the life of the party at their glitzy get-togethers and charitable functions. But as time passed, Amanda became aware of minor adjustments Richard had made. He started to act more aloof, frequently arriving home late and departing early in the morning. The man she married, who had before been kind and loving, had become distant and focused. Amanda made an effort to disregard these changes, blaming them on the strain of his hard work. But every day that went by, the nagging doubt in the back of her mind intensified. Richard brought Carla Rowe into their lives when he employed her as his personal secretary. With her striking features, black flowing hair, and confident demeanor, Carla captured the attention of everyone around her. She was clever, efficient, and seemed to have a deeper understanding of Richard than Amanda did. Before long, Amanda's misgivings were directed toward Carla. Amanda made the decision to speak with Richard one evening. In an attempt to rekindle their romance and encourage him to talk, she cooked a candlelight supper. Amanda shared all of her worries and fears with him as they sat across from each other at the dining table. Richard heard her concerns, but he waved them aside, explaining his actions away as the demands of his work. Amanda wasn't persuaded by his assurances that she shouldn't be concerned. Amanda engaged Mark Collins, a private investigator, because she was determined to get the truth. Mark was an experienced professional known for his diligence and discretion. He tracked Richard and Carla for several weeks, recording their conversations. He collected damning evidence, including intimate interactions, weekends away, and late-night dinners that left no space for doubt. Carla and Richard were having an affair. A mixture of feelings, including great sadness, betrayal, and wrath, filled Amanda. She found it incomprehensible that Richard could harm their family in this way. But in the middle of her chaos, there was also a peculiar relief. At least now that she was aware of the reality, she could use the evidence to guide her next course of action. After her first shock, Amanda developed a steely resolve. In an attempt to learn more before confronting Richard, she made the decision to speak with Carla first. Amanda set up a meeting to talk about a charity function that Richard's company was supporting. Carla accepted to meet at a posh downtown cafe without realizing Amanda's actual goals. The cafe has soft lighting, comfortable seats, and a warm, welcoming atmosphere. Amanda was early, and she opted for a quiet corner table, so they could have a private conversation. A few minutes later, Carla arrived, approaching the table with ease and assurance. Curious and angry at the same time, Amanda felt both. Carla gave Amanda a warm greeting and remarked on the cafe's beauty. Concealing her actual emotions, Amanda graciously responded and moved the conversation in Richard's direction. She brought up the fact that Richard had been spending a lot of time at work and inquired about his productivity. In response, Carla said that Richard was very committed and that the cases he was working on took up a lot of his time. Then, with a slight lean, Amanda revealed to Carla that she was aware of the affair. Carla's expression became pale, and she started to say something, but Amanda cut her off by stating that she wasn't there to make accusations or place blame. All Amanda wanted to know was why it had occurred. With tears in her eyes, Carla described how it began several years prior, during a difficult period for Richard at work. As they started to spend more time together, things started to spiral out of control. Amanda experienced an odd kind of empathy as Carla was speaking. Carla's pain was visible to her, reflecting back to her own conflict. They had struck up an unexpected bond by the end of the talk. Carla found comfort in Amanda's empathy and understanding, while Amanda was enthralled by Carla's wit and charm. Amanda and Carla kept having secret meetings in the ensuing weeks. From what had begun as an argument, a complicated relationship developed. Their relationship grew stronger as their meetings increased in frequency. Carla summoned Amanda to her apartment one evening, purportedly to go over some paperwork regarding the charity function. The apartment was a chic, contemporary place with floor-to-ceiling windows providing an amazing city view. There was a noticeable tension growing between them as they chatted and drank wine while sitting on the couch. Carla put down her drink and said, "I've developed feelings for Amanda," looking directly into her eyes. Amanda's pulse pounded. Though she was too scared to say it, she had felt exactly the same way. She acknowledged that she had the same thoughts. That night, their intense kiss marked the transition from emotional bonding to physical closeness. The affair was passionate, a blur of encounters and stolen moments. Though anxiety and guilt tormented Amanda, she also felt alive in a manner she hadn't felt in years. They would get together in isolated areas of the city, such as Carla's apartment, remote cafes, and secret areas of parks, where they felt protected from prying eyes. They had lighthearted banter in between serious philosophical debates. Their friendship transcended sexual attraction as they exchanged hopes, dreams, and worries. But Amanda knew very well how tenuous their circumstances were. She was aware that there would be terrible repercussions if Richard found out. She was unable to force herself to end the affair in spite of this. She hadn't realized how much Carla had filled the vacuum in her life until now. When Richard saw Amanda's altered conduct, his suspicions began to grow. She appeared to have gained confidence and was more withdrawn, spending a lot of time in contemplation. Because of his anxiety, Richard installed a concealed camera in Carla's apartment because he thought Amanda might have found out about his affair and was planning a revenge attack. Richard's anger and sense of betrayal boiled over as he watched the video and saw his wife with Carla. He believed both ladies had plotted against him and felt dehumanized and emasculated as a result. Desperate to take back control of his life, Richard started to carefully prepare his retaliation. A stormy night, Richard pretended to want to talk about their relationship and figure out a way ahead, so he asked Amanda to his office. Amanda nodded, hoping for a reunion. The steely confidence in Richard's gaze caught her attention as soon as she walked into his dimly lighted office. Amanda was told to sit down by Richard in an emotionless voice. With a racing heart, Amanda sat down. She opened her mouth to say something, but Richard interrupted, slapping a folder of pictures onto the desk. He claimed to be fully informed about both Carla and her. Amanda gazed at the incriminating images, her eyes widening with disbelief. She begged Richard to give her a chance to explain, but he was unthinking. His hands tightened around Amanda's throat as he lunged at her. Amanda clawed at his hands in an attempt to free herself, but Richard held on tight. She vanished in a matter of moments as her vision grew blurry. Richard was furious and confused as he stood over Amanda's lifeless body. He was aware that he needed to move fast to hide his tracks. He created the scene, throwing papers all over the place and ransacking the office to make it look like a heist gone bad. His rage erupted, and he drove to Carla's apartment. When Carla saw Richard at her door, she was taken aback. Her voice faltering, she questioned what he was doing there. Richard shoved past her, anger exploding in his eyes. He said she had destroyed his family, ruined everything, and seduced his wife. Fear taking hold of her heart, Carla retreated and pleaded with Richard to hear her out and see that things weren't as they seemed. But Richard wasn't interested in hearing. He threw himself at Carla, but she dodged him, picking up a large vase and breaking it over his head. Richard stumbled for a while, confused. With only the clothing on her back, Carla grabbed her chance and ran into the night. Her mind racing with panic and bewilderment, she sprinted through the streets saturated with rain. She needed to get away from Richard as quickly as possible. She was aware that he would murder her if he discovered her. When Carla arrived at the town's edge, she saw an ancient, deserted cabin. Trembling from fear and adrenaline, she slipped inside. Ethan Everwood woke up the following morning without a mother and shortly after without a father. In an effort to hide his whereabouts, Richard filed a missing persons report and made up an alibi. But the cops soon found contradictions in his account. When Amanda's body was found in Richard's office, forensic findings and Richard's strange conduct suggested that he was the murderer. After being detained and found guilty of killing Amanda, he was given a life sentence without the possibility of release. Meanwhile, Carla had disappeared without a word. Miles from Belleville, at a rest break, her automobile was discovered abandoned. Although there were whispers that she had left the nation, no hard proof ever surfaced. Some people conjectured that she had taken on a false name and begun a new life. Carla vanished, and many were perplexed. Carla had grown up in a home where religious zeal and violence were commonplace, and she had experienced years of terror and repression. Running away was more than simply a way out. It was a path to freedom. Knowing all too well the horrors her family could inflict upon her, she feared the consequences of being found out and would do everything in their power to disappear without a trace, leaving behind a life of servitude for one of uncertain liberty. Now an orphan, Ethan was adopted by Lydia, Amanda's sister, who lovingly raised him. The silent Everwood house, which had previously been a haven of love and laughter, served as a sobering reminder of the terrible events that had taken place. Despite Lydia's best efforts, Ethan's early years were marred by instability due to the tragedy that befell his parents. With such a horrible past behind him, she frequently wondered what type of man Ethan would become. Carla had a difficult time getting away. She knew she had to get out of Belleville and be utterly invisible. She bought a bus ticket to the closest large city with some cash she had saved up. From then on, she moved about a lot, going under several names and working odd jobs to make ends meet. Her previously assured and composed manner was supplanted by a persistent sense of unease and fear of being identified. Small towns offered Carla brief comfort, allowing her to disappear into the background. She changed her look, colored her hair, and shunned forming strong relationships with people. She moved on every time she thought someone may recognize her. Her existence turned into a succession of brief sojourns and peaceful moments. She missed Amanda very much and fantasized a lot about their time together, their passion, and their ambitions in a little seaside village that was distant from Belleville. In the small town, Carla at last found some stability. She started working long hours and being private at a nearby diner. The village was peaceful, and the locals were cordial, but mindful of her right to privacy. Carla relaxed and let her guard down a bit for the first time in months. She attempted to start anew by renting a little basic apartment, but her fear of being found out never really went away. The weight of his family's troubled past was too much for Ethan, who is now a teenager. He was a calm, thoughtful youngster who spent a lot of time reflecting. Even though Lydia tried her hardest to give Ethan a caring environment, he was nevertheless subjected to looks and murmurs from people who knew about his parents. Because of his father's crime, Ethan faced challenges at school from students who either avoided him or bullied him. Ethan turned to books for comfort and would lose hours reading fiction that had nothing to do with his own life at the neighborhood library. His teachers supported him in following his hobbies in the hopes of giving him a constructive outlet, and as a result, he became passionate about writing and began to express his feelings and experiences via his writings. Even though his history was gloomy, Ethan had optimism for the future he might build for himself. Ethan once came onto an old family photo album while looking through old pictures of his parents when they were younger. They appeared so vibrant and in love. He questioned how things could have gone so badly. Ethan was determined to learn more, so he started researching his family's past. He put together his parents' life story by reading past newspaper stories and speaking with those who had known them. Through his inquiry, Ethan learned about his father's and Carla's affair. The treachery stunned and hurt him, but it also made him feel strangely connected to Carla. He pondered over her whereabouts following that awful night. He got in touch with Amanda's hired private investigator, Mark Collins, as a result of his quest for information. Though he was reluctant to revisit past wounds, retired Mark was affected by Ethan's resolve. He told Ethan about the events that had happened, the evidence he had obtained, and the specifics of his investigation. Ethan found out about the argument his mother had with Carla, their subsequent liaison, and the evening his mother was killed. He was torn between sadness, fury, and a strong desire for closure. Ethan pursued the trail Carla had left behind, determined to find her. He went to the location she had stayed, spoke with those who had known her, and gradually put her journey together. After a while, the trail brought him to Carla's current residence, a little coastal hamlet. When Ethan arrived, Carla was working her regular shift at the diner. At first, she didn't know him, but as he drew nearer to her, she noticed a familiar sadness in his eyes. Ethan identified himself and said he was the son of Richard and Amanda. Carla was taken aback and felt both fear and hope at the same time. They started talking as she motioned for Ethan to take a seat. Ethan opened up to Carla about his life, his difficulties, and his quest for knowledge. In response, Carla talked about her journey, her escape, and her efforts to start over. They shared their suffering and recollections of Amanda during hours of conversation. Carla opened up about how much she had loved Amanda and how the affair had brought her both happiness and pain. About the night his mother was killed, Ethan questioned Carla. Carla described what had happened, her voice quivering with passion. She related to him how Richard had attacked her, his violent and enraged outburst, and her frantic attempt to flee. With a mixture of resentment towards his father and sympathy for Carla, Ethan listened carefully. In an effort to get to know Carla better and come to some closure, Ethan made the decision to spend some time in the seaside town. They talked about Amanda a lot, shared experiences, and assisted each other's healing during their extended time together. Ethan felt a connection and understanding that he had never experienced before, while Carla found solace in his company. Ethan and Carla developed a closer bond over time. They developed into a network of support for one another, assisting in the healing of old traumas. Motivated by Carla's strength and the experiences she had given, Ethan kept writing. Carla's mission was refocused when she helped Ethan and discovered how to go forward in her life. After some time, Ethan released his first book, which was a fictitious retelling of his family's history. Ethan was complimented for his writing skill and emotional nuance, and the book was met with critical acclaim. He dedicated the book to Carla, who had taught him the value of forgiveness and understanding, and his mother, Amanda. Meanwhile, Carla stayed put in the seaside town where she was able to find stability and serenity. She kept in touch with Ethan, going to see him frequently, and saw him blossom into a well-known author. The knowledge that she had been able to assist Ethan in finding closure and that they had both managed to move on gave her comfort. The Everwood murders became a well-known Belleville case that served as a warning about treachery, betrayal, and the terrible results of suppressed impulses. Amanda's artwork became well-known, and her landscape paintings attracted fans from a great distance because of its eerie beauty. Once revered, Richard's name came to represent tragedy and insanity. Years passed, and the town was still talking hushedly about the mysterious secretary Carla Monroe, who vanished into the night. One of Belleville's biggest mysteries was still her whereabouts, casting a pall over the terrible story of the Everwood family. Ethan was raised with the burden of his parents' heritage, but he was also determined to change his course and end the cycle of violence and treachery. Ultimately, the murders at Everwood served as a sobering reminder of the brittleness of human connections and the terrible effects of lying and keeping secrets. It was a narrative that would be passed down through the years, a somber episode in Belleville's past that would never be forgotten. Ethan kept writing, frequently tackling themes of love, treachery, and atonement. Many readers who were not aware of the real reality behind his writings found resonance in his works. In spite of his tragic past, Ethan managed to transform his suffering into art, bringing beauty out of the tragedy that befell his family. The Everwood murders were ultimately a tale of love, grief, and the enduring power of forgiveness rather than merely a criminal case. Although the people involved had their lives irrevocably altered, they managed to go on, find peace, and rebuild their lives from the wreckage of their past.